So good, so good, so good.
Spring styles are at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and they're up to 60% off. Stock up and save on Rag & Bone, Madewell, Vince, All Saints, and more of your favorites.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Why do we rack? For the hottest deals. Just so many good brands.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Hello and welcome to Away the Podcast. It's Martin here, and we've got another episode of On This Week for you today, where we take a look back at the rich and varied history of Sunderland Association Football Club, focusing on events that happened on this week over the past almost 150 years. And of course, I've got my two friends with me today to elaborate on some of these stories. So first of all, I'll say good morning to Kelvin Beattie. Hello, Kelvin.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to this today. The sun's up. The birds are tweetering away. The squirrels are fighting in the trees, but in front of me there, boy, am I ready for this today.
I was going to say something about a mouthful of nuts there, but I shall restrain myself at this point. And Kelvin, I worked out before, it's the 51st week, I think, that we've done these podcasts. And my rudimentary math skills tell me that we've recorded about 125 to 130 hours of Sunderland history over the past 11 and a half months. Yeah. And, that's pretty good going, isn't it? And I think it's such an important thing. I know we do it for fun in the main, don't we? And we hope that people enjoy listening to it. But it's such an important thing to record all of this stuff, because when you look back through the archives, it's certainly the early stages of the club's history, there's so much stuff that you kind of have to piece together, and it's not really, there's a few books here and there, isn't there? But there's such a lot to get into, and you could do a few more thousand hours on it, couldn't you? Really?
Absolutely. And I was never more conscious of it, and starting with a bit of controversy when that list of legends was read out at the start of the game. Just before the game started, if ever there was a case of recency bias, we really did, I was sitting in my seat fuming, and really, I just thought we have to we've got to keep going with this. We have to keep these stories, these people who did just marvelously getting the club up, all the fans over the generations. I just thought it was a very, very poor list of so-called legends, given all the real legends that we could have. I'm not saying there aren't any people in there that don't deserve to be in there, but I was shocked at some of the people that were in that list. So I'm starting with a bit of controversy. The birds have stopped tweetering and the squirrels have run away.
I agree with you completely. And it's something that Chris and I touched upon in the podcast that we did on Monday with Nick Barnes last Monday. And I think it's going to be the subject of a lot more conversation on How We Are the Podcast over the next couple of weeks, because we're due to record a Q&A podcast, which will have come out by the time this one's out. But, the subject of some of those questions is certainly that list, and it has irked a few people. And I think there's recency bias, I think there's political bias, and there's all sorts of other stuff going on there. But anyway, we can do our honourable thing and talk about the real legends.
That's it. We focus on the positives. We focus on the people that really matter. Yeah.
And, continuing on from that, joining myself and Kelvin today is, of course, Andrew Smithson, who did an hour monologue on Laurie McMenemy last week. So, How are you, Andrew?
It's going to be like that today, is it? Right. Okay. I'm not bad. I mean, that business with the names being announced, was that not just the club paying homage to the fact that there's always a controversy at Sunderland? even when we're flying high and we're winning games, there's always going to be something happening in the background that's got people bristling a little bit. And yeah, that's clearly the club saying, "Oh, we'll just see how far we can push the fans on this one."
Oh, it's the bloody listen to our podcast that we decided the list for everybody.
Yeah. In all seriousness, I missed the announcement. I must have been grabbing food or whatever. I actually don't know the full list that's been announced, so I've just heard people kind of chuntering away about certain individuals, and I think one or two have been named that weren't on the short list.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to have to read this full breakdown before making a full. That's my Arsene Wenger impression. I haven't seen it properly yet.
You might get hit with a slice of pizza before not. Pizza again. And Andrew, I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I'd read the Stoker 73 book, the Lance Hardy book, and towards the end of that, it mentioned the documentary that Tyne Tees filmed, Meanwhile Back in Sunderland. And I found that on YouTube, and I sat watching it the other day. And if anybody hasn't seen it, I would urge them to go and, after you've listened to this podcast, of course, go and find it on YouTube, because it's a fantastic bit of social history, never mind footballing history. But it struck me that they were talking to a few people who had been at 37 Cup finals as well. What great time if you were born at the right time. 37 Cup final, league victories, FA Cup final in 73. But it struck me that for those people in 1973 talking about the 1937 Cup final, that's the same amount of years that have passed as when we've been talking about the Kieran Brady game in 1990. Newcastle playoffs in 1990, Gary Bennett's famous goal against Manchester United at Roker Park in 1990. It only seems like yesterday, doesn't it? So for those people in 73, it seemed 2 cup wins and the other one only seemed like yesterday. It must have been a remarkable thing.
Yeah, and I love to think that at 73 there were one or two older fans who were saying, "Oh, these lads aren't a patch on." When I was a lad, when I was watching Sunderland in 1937, there will have been somebody unhappy with the 73 vintage for whatever reason. That documentary is superb for all those reasons that you say about the social history as much as anything else. And if you are like me from the town, it's nice to play a little game of trying to work out, oh, that's such and such a street, or that building's not there anymore. And then you've got the characters and the personal stories, and brilliant piece of work. But yeah, it's quite sobering to think that the gaps in the eras, we've done the same, but our memories aren't quite of cup wins. They're just of more day-to-day matters. So, Martin, you've got us on a right downer now.
No, I was just laughing to myself when I was thinking about those people in 73 going, "Oh, we've deserved this. We've waited through so long for all of this. We've gone through all the bad times." Well, it's all relative, isn't it? I guess.
I was laughing because I'm sure when we looked at that Kieran Brady game, did I not say something like, it's a change for me to look at something a bit more recent?
If I may, Kelvin, you know I love you to bits. But when we were out for that International Fans Weekend and we ended up in a pub in town that was quite rowdy, there were songs coming on from the 90s, and you kept turning to me saying, "I don't recognise this modern stuff." Or the other thing you said was, this isn't the original. I remember the original from 20 years prior.
I know.
I tell you what another thing about that documentary that's quite stark, and this is something we touch upon loads, Martin, in this, however, the podcast on this week episodes. The eras are different. Maybe the fashions are different, or the decor is different, but the emotions people go through, those behaviours, I recognise in myself. So there's something about this club that I don't know what it is, but whether we're up or we're down, it has people. It's got them. Sunderland sinks its teeth into Sunderland and makes them feel all these weird and wonderful emotions. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful.
No, it certainly is. And I think if you do the maths as well, the difference between 37 and 73, next appearance at Wembley for an FA Cup final is 92. So that means in 2 years' time, 2028, we should be in the FA Cup final.
Get in.
So I'm just telling you. So to book Wembley hotels and that for the weekend in May in 2028, you can't go too far wrong.
Don't spare me till then.
Well, without much further ado, we better get cracking. Andrew, you left the listeners with a quiz question to ponder on last week, didn't you?
Yes, thanks, Martin. 21st of April 2004, I asked which player became the first Sunderland goalkeeper to be sent off. Now, I know you two probably know this answer anyway, because you will have read done the research when we were prepping for this pod. But do one of you want to take the glory and give me a name?
Boom!
Perfect. It was not a bad season for Poom. He's scored a goal for us and then became the first keeper to be sent off. It was a game against Crystal Palace. We lost quite heavily in the end. We lost 3-0. But Mick McCarthy did have us at that point up amongst the leading clubs. And given the state of things when he took over, gents, even that was a massive achievement. I know Mark Poom was probably on decent wages, but the squad was all over the shop. So for us at this point of the season to be even playing Palace in what was considered like a promotion 6-pointer, it was some going from McCarthy. Like, you've got to give him credit.
Oh, I think the job that McCarthy did in those first 2 seasons was astronomical. And I think it's a real shame it's tainted by what happened in that season that we went back up to the Premier League. But if you look at those 2 seasons, like, we could have gone down again that first season. The club was in a similar state, I think, to when we went down in 2016 or whenever it was. And McCarthy pulled that team together with free transfers. He had players like Marcus Stewart was on the transfer list for most of that first season because the club wanted to get shot of his wages. And to get a team built and playing the sort of football he was able to get them playing, we should have probably gone up that first season through the playoffs. It was a dodgy refereeing decision, really, that cost us against Crystal Palace in the playoff semi at Stadium Light, wasn't it? But I think that 2-season job he did to get us back up in isolation is probably one of the best spells a manager's had at Sunderland.
Definitely. And that promoted team that then won the championship, that's our second highest point tally ever. So again, just to emphasise that point about where the club was to where he took it was phenomenal. But this particular game was against Palace. I think we were third and they were also in the playoffs. It was an important game. It was really tight for the first 20 minutes. But that is when Andy Johnson is fouled in the box by Poom. The referee was a fella called Phil Dowd, who I think must have got quite senior because I remember his name in the years that followed. He flashed a red. Tommy Smith had to be subbed off. so that Thomas Myra could come in and replace Poom in goal. His first job is to pick the ball out of the net because, as well as being sent off, Poom's given away a penalty. I think this is when Andy Johnson started becoming a bit of a figure of hate for us. He wasn't popular with Sunderland fans. He liked working his ticket. But yeah, they're 1-0 up. We were okay after that, considering we were down to 10 men. But in the second half, Neil Shipley and Doogie Friedman scored to wrap it up. We lose 3-0. Poom's suspension doesn't come automatically. He actually plays in a few games afterwards. That's something I'd forgotten about, but that used to be the case.
Yeah, he'd play for a few weeks, couldn't you?
Aye, which is a weird limbo, because you kind of, you've not had chance to serve your time yet. So Poom played for us. He then sits out the final game of the regular season before we then back at Selhurst Park in the playoffs. As you say, we kind of got shafted by the ref in the playoffs. But the thing that struck me most about this story, that's some time. That's a canny long while in Sunderland history. We're talking 2004 here. For that to be the first time we've had a keeper sent off, that's some going, really, when you think about it.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
Aye. All those years with the keeper manager not to get his marching orders. It's remarkable, really.
Especially when you look at some of those keepers, not necessarily calm, retiring figures that we've had in our goals. Some of them lads have been absolutely bonkers, so I'm surprised. I was surprised when I saw that, no names, no pack drill, but...
I can't quite believe it. When I first read it, I thought it was the first time a goalkeeper sub had been brought on to replace somebody who'd been sent off. When you looked into it, it was the first time we've had a keeper sent off. And you look at the likes of Ian Hesford. I think Hesford might have been able to get sent off after the final whistle or something, but not during the course of the 90 minutes.
Do you think the ref has just taken pity on us in the past and thought, well, maybe give him a fighting chance? But it's just the sheer law of averages in all of those years. You would have expected a challenge to be mistimed or a keeper to maybe handle outside of the box or something, but we managed to get as far as 2004. I can't, off the top of my head, think of too many examples since then either, where keepers have been sent off.
You had the famous one, Jason Steele coming out and flapping at QPR, didn't he? Which got another airing after his very bizarre England call-up. That rivals some of the picks on Legends Way, that Jason Steele's England call-up.
Well, there you go. Maybe Jason Steele read the history books and thought, I need to balance this out. I'm going to have to do something wild.
But you do wonder whether, and I don't know whether the rules were slightly different, but whether there was a hesitancy to send goalkeepers off because there wasn't a replacement. And sending them off is one thing. When you're down 10 men, you can bring a sub-goalkeeper on. In days gone by, if you didn't have a sub-goalkeeper on the bench, sending the goalkeeper off and having to put an outfield player in goal to replace them is almost like a double punishment, isn't it? And you do wonder whether that affected some calls or the rules even. Because I actually don't remember many goalkeepers getting sent off against us before sub-goalkeepers were a thing.
No, that's a fair point. We're saying there that it hasn't happened to us much, but yeah, it probably hasn't happened to opposition clubs. And as well, particularly if in addition to all of that, the attacking team have got a penalty and are maybe going to go ahead, maybe the referee in the back of his mind has just thought that's too much of a punishment.
Because you can remember sort of Quinny coming on for Sorensen and Bradford, but that was injury, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I think you could be right, Martin. I've got in the back of my head this didn't involve Sunderland, but I can't remember why it's in the back of my head. But I always remember Leeds and Arsenal playing, and I'm going back to the 60s here, and I think it was Bobby Gould challenged Gary Sprake for a ball that came across the box. And the ball actually skated through and went out for a by kick. But when they landed, Gary Sprake just right-hooked him and right-hooked Bobby Gould and knocked him. It was as clear a punch as you could. It was like something you would have seen in the boxing ring, you know. And Bobby Gould was down, and the referee booked both of them.
Yeah, right.
But didn't, you know, it was as clear an assault as you could wish to see. But the ref didn't send them off, and I can remember thinking, in fact, I'm sure there was a caption. I think I read that in the papers as well. That you know, what have you got to do to get sent off? You know, if you're a keeper, you get away with you do get away with a bit of murder. That debate went on for years, didn't it, about keepers being overprotected? But then you'd see keepers raising their knees, going up for high balls, you know, fully knowing that they're going to crack them knees into attacking players. You know, a different issue, but keepers.
Well, there's a famous goalkeeper challenge, isn't there? In one of the World Cups where there's Harold Schumacher, the German, came out and basically fly kicked somebody in the head.
Yeah,
yellow card.
Yeah,
he didn't get sent off.
Was that not Platini that he knocked over? I have that as Platini. Yeah, I mean that was all out assault, wasn't it?
It was
as well. It was. Yeah.
Was Bobby Gould cautioned because he had the temerity to put his chin in the way of Sprake's moving hand or something?
Now, Bobby Gould was probably hoisted by his own petard. Can you remember him as a manager?
Yeah,
Bobby Gould. Yeah, he wasn't a very big lad, Bobby Gould, but boy, he would put his foot in on, and he could be a little bit tasty around keepers. So you can see why you might want to get the first strike in. But that strike was Henry Cooper would have been proud of it, man.
It was Patrick Battiston was the Frenchman who Harold Schumacher.
I was going to say on Bobby Gould, to just kind of like prove Kelvin's point, he, as a manager, was infamous for, if ever there was a problem with a player who disagreed with the decision, he'd say, right, let's have it out on the training ground. The players would form a circle around them, and the player and the manager would just have a bit of a wrestle in the middle of the training pitch. So he obviously wasn't shy. And I'm wondering, this is just a thought that's popped in my head now. I'm wondering if the reason keepers were overprotected, and you had incidents like the Battiston one, I wonder if that was a reaction to the early years of the games where goalkeepers could be charged. We've seen at Sunderland, it could lead to tragic circumstances when keepers got rough treatment. Maybe referees were encouraged to go the other way and say, goalkeepers do need protection. And it then went from, you know, when the pendulum swings, it's ended up going completely the other way, where Martin says you have goalkeepers getting away with like rushing out of their box. And I think the player he tackled ended up needing like major dental and facial surgery.
He was in hospital, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There's a big difference, isn't there, though, between being overprotected in that situation and then just going, do what the hell you want. Wipe somebody out, kick somebody in the head, take people out. I'm not sure that's that's not overprotection, is it? That's just do your nut, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing where just a simple mention of Mark Broom getting sent off for Leeds, wasn't it? We'll take a very short break there, and then after the break, we'll start the show. We'll see you soon.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Welcome back to On This Week. And we are going to start this episode on April the 20th. I'm going to go all the way back to 1895 because Sunderland got their third league championship in just 4 years. What a time, eh? A 2-1 win at Newcastle Road over Everton gave us that victory. Andrew McCready and Johnny Campbell were the scorers. 1968, Charlie Hurley scored his 26th and last goal for Sunderland in a 2-0 home win over Arsenal. An own goal from Arsenal's Bob McNabb was the other scorer for Sunderland on that occasion. 1991, Sunderland beat Luton Town 2-1 away from home at Kenilworth Road on the plastic pitch in what we thought was going to be quite a decisive relegation battle, and it was. But it kind of didn't work out the way that we thought. But we won 2-1. Gordon Armstrong and Colin Pascoe got the goals for us. But can either of you name the Luton Town goalkeeper on that day?
Was it Alec Chamberlain?
It was Alec Chamberlain. Well done. Yeah, Alec Chamberlain was in goal for Luton, playing on that. It was funny watching matches on plastic pitches, wasn't it? It just didn't seem like a proper game of football. The ball used to bounce ridiculously high. People used to wear tights and padding on those. It was almost a completely different sport, wasn't it? Never mind a completely different game. But yeah, Luton and QPR famously had plastic pitches and top flight, and Preston had one, didn't they? And somebody must have thought it was a good idea at the time. Oldham Athletic, we spoke about them last week.
Mm. When I play five-a-side these days, and I come home and my boots are absolutely full of those little black rubber pellets, I get absolutely murdered for like ruining the washing machine and leaving a trail of pellets along the kitchen floor. I wonder if professional players used to get that, Oldham players or Luton players getting grief every time they came home after playing a game because they brought half of the plastic pitch up with them, or it's stuck to their legs. That Luton game's very odd. If you watch the highlights, Sunderland, or it wasn't just Sunderland fans. I think all away fans had been banned from Luton, and yet when Sunderland score, there's like pockets of Sunderland fans in the home ends, just jumping up and then suddenly realising, well, I'm not meant to be here. I'll just take my seat again. I think a lot of London-based fans must have managed to get round the restrictions and use their London postcodes to get tickets in the home sections.
No, I can't remember why that ban was in place at Luton, but it certainly was.
Was it not Leeds United fans? Wasn't there a big scrap with Leeds fans? And I seem to remember that. And Luton decided they would ban away fans. The thing is, if ever you've been to Luton, any has been to Luton?
I have.
Yeah, they're at home. They're not necessarily the friendliest bunch.
No.
I'm generalising, but I've been a couple of times, and I've always felt, wow, for a little tin pot club, you lot doing off.
Maybe you calling the tin pot might have been the problem, Kelvin.
Well, I kept that to myself, Andrew. I kept that to myself when I was there.
And welcome to BBC Radio Luton for our update on Kelvin's thoughts on our club. It's the away end of Luton that's the fun thing, isn't it? You kind of go through this little thing in between two houses. You walk up some steps and you overlook in backyards with bloody washing in and all sorts. It must be really bizarre to have football supporters walking through your back garden like that and peering over and looking at your socks hanging out on your washing line every other Saturday. But there you go.
Well, it's always good to air your dirty laundry, so aye.
As we know only too well. A year later, after that Luton game, Sunderland played Middlesbrough at Roker Park. This is a Monday game, and we won 1-0. A goal from Peter Davenport, a brilliant goal, actually. He rifled it in from the edge of the box in front of the Roker end, and he celebrated against his former club, which I've always had a lot of time for because he didn't stand on ceremony on that occasion. 2013, this was Paolo Di Canio's first game in charge at the Stadium Light. He'd led us away at Chelsea and we got beat down Stamford Bridge, and we had the game against Newcastle where he he slid down, and Kelvin still promised us a rendition of that song, didn't he? But he hasn't delivered it yet. So if everybody could see this, as soon as I started talking about this game, Kelvin's took his headphones off and just walked away. And he won't know anything about this until he listens back to this podcast. But we are still waiting for a rendition of the Paolo Di Canio Dirty Knees song.
I think he's got a couple of Luton fans knocking on his front door. And he's had to go and see to them.
Somebody's out sealing the socks, maybe.
Yeah.
Kelvin, I was just saying, in 2013, this was Paolo Di Canio's first game at the Stadium Light. And, the listeners, we've had emails in asking for your rendition of the Paolo Di Canio song, and you still haven't delivered it. Oh, he's put himself on mute now. This is
He's in a proper huff with you.
He is in a proper huff, isn't he? He's sabotaging himself.
Paolo Di Canio, I love you all my life, Paolo Di Canio. I'm not going to sing that next. I want dirty knees too.
Oh, there we go. We never say Kelvin doesn't deliver on the promise. Anyway, we beat Everton 1-0. Stefan Sessegnon got the goal. Darren Gibson, Victor Inichibi, Stephen Pienaar were all in the Everton lineup. Brian Oviedo was on the bench. You'll never guess who the manager was of Everton that day.
Probably the only Sunderland win he witnessed at the stadium, was it?
It was David Moyes was the Everton manager on that occasion. April the 21st, Sunderland beat Bolton 4-1 at Roker Park in 1930. All five of those goals in the game were in the first half. Patsy Gallagher got 2. Billy Clunas and Bobby Gurney were the other scorers for Sunderland. Interestingly, the Clunas goal, we've talked about him. We haven't talked about him for a few weeks, but we have talked about him in previous podcasts. Exceptionally good from the spot. This was a rare occasion. He had his penalty saved, and his goal came from the rebound. So it didn't count officially as a penalty, but it did come from the penalty that he took. 1949, Sunderland beat Manchester United 2-1 at Main Road. And yes, that is at Main Road because Old Trafford was damaged during World War II. So Manchester United played over the road at their rivals' ground. Ivor Broadus and Jackie Robinson got the goals for us on that occasion. 7 years later, 1956, we beat Sheffield United 3-2 at Bramall Lane. Ted Purden got 2 and Stan Anderson got 1. The singing winger Colin Granger was in the Sheffield United team that day. 1962, we beat the visitors 3-0 at Roker Park. George Hurd got 2 goals and Willie McFeet got the other. In 1973, this was this big run of games that we had in the lead up to the cup final. 2-0 against Hull City at Boothby Park. Vic Hallam and Billy Hughes got the goals. Ken Knighton, John Hawley, not the podcast John Hawley, the football player John Hawley, and Roy Greenwood were in the Hull team that day as well. Now, 1984, we beat Everton 2-1 at Roker Park. Pop Robson, Colin West got the goals. Adrian Heath, who of course had a spell as assistant and all sorts of stuff with Peter Reid at Sunderland, he scored the goal for Everton. Peter Reid was in the Everton team that day alongside Terry Curran, who had a few games for us. I think on loan, didn't he, Terry Curran? Kevin Richardson, who was part of the coaching staff at Sunderland for quite a while. And Alan Harper, who played a single game in a pre-season friendly under Terry Butcher down at Ayresome Park against Middlesbrough in that pre-season when we signed Phil Gray and Derek Ferguson. Andy Melville, there we go, ding ding. 32 minutes for anybody who had Andy Melville on their bingo card. And Alex Chamberlain, of course, came in that summer. Alan Harper was rumoured to be signing. He played a pre-season friendly game for us, but that signing did not eventuate. Now then, for our first deep dive today, we're going to go a little bit further forward. We're going to go to April the 23rd and all the way back to 1892, Andrew.
Yes, cheers, Martin. You were talking about 1895, and I'm thinking, well, I'm taking us back even further than that. Sunderland played away at Darwen and won 7-1. So that's a pretty handsome victory on the road, and I thought we'd have a little look at that. The game was played at Barley Bank in Lancashire, which was Darwen's home ground. It was also the home of Darwen Cricket Club. So must have been a popular venue in the town. Sunderland's lineup. Now, there's a few names in here. Funnily enough, I hadn't really thought of this, but some of these players who played for us on this day were on that shortlist for the Legends Walk, and I think on that podcast the three of us did a couple of weeks ago, we did actually talk about the merits of these players and were they worthy of recognition for their service to the club. Ted Doig, he was the goalkeeper. He was certainly one of the ones who I think we felt needed some sort of recognition. There was also Tom Porteous and John Murray. In front of them was Lolty Wilson. I know Kelvin, he's a player who's interested you, and we've spoken about him recently, and I think you've written about him as well. He had John Auld and Will Gibson alongside him, and the forwards were Jimmy and Davy Hanna, although they were no relation, they just happened to have the same surname. Also, Johnny Campbell, Jimmy Miller, and John Scott. So some real massive names in Sunderland history there. We actually went behind after 2 minutes. It was a bit of a shock that Darwen took the lead, and it was really scruffy finish from a player called John Wade. And Martin, you made the point recently that Doig was an amazing goalkeeper for us. But when you read the reports, you do see one or two instances of him perhaps being erratic. I wondered if this might have been one of those moments, because from what I could tell, it wasn't necessarily the best of goals from Darwen. But nevertheless, Darwen took the lead. We then missed some real gilt-edged chances before levelling on 20 minutes. We were keen to get back on level terms quickly and started pummeling Darwen. We had a lot of chances that we wasted before John Scott does actually equalise, make it 1-1. The timings of some of the goals that followed weren't recorded, but it's a bit of a blitz from Sunderland, and by half-time, we're 4-1 up. Jimmy Hanna scores what's referred to as a splendid goal, having ran the length of the pitch. It sounds like an amazing bit of skill from him. He then gets a second goal before the break to sandwich what was Johnny Campbell's first of the afternoon. After the break, Campbell goes on to get his hat-trick. He scores his second with 55 minutes gone. To be fair to Darwen, they'd actually had a few chances. They'd come out after half-time and really pushed at us and really tried to get themselves back into things. But Campbell kills them off with like a low finish along the deck. That seems to be one of his trademarks. Whenever you're reading about him, he seems to take his shots very quickly to kind of like catch the goalkeeper out. And a lot of them are low, powerful strikes across the grass. So yeah, that's his second of the day. He then has another one ruled out after his attempt, just slightly brushes a Sunderland hand on the way into the net. But never mind, with about 10 minutes remaining, Wilson scores. Wilson gets a goal, and Campbell gets his match ball. He scores his hat-trick goal late on. Although when I say he gets his match ball, I actually doubt clubs did hand out balls back then. They probably weren't keen on just handing away valuable bits of equipment for the sake of it. So 7-1 to Sunderland. Give them their due. Darwen could have scored more. They did really try, and they pushed Sunderland hard in defensive terms. But I think, unsurprisingly, when you look at Sunderland's two games against them that season, They finished bottom, having conceded 112 goals. I say when you kind of look particularly at our results against them, that's because we'd beaten them at home 7-0. So I mean, you could say they were improving by the time of the return. But even then, even though they did take an early lead against us, this remains our highest aggregate score in two, in a home and away set of league games. It's our highest aggregate achieved in our entire history. So that shows you just how comfortable we were against Darwen. And, they went bottom. They were relegated that season. They were, in this game, up against the newly crowned league champions. Sunderland had just become champions for the first time a week earlier. You touched, Martin, about how 3 years later we were celebrating our third title. We won the title 3 times in 4 seasons. We were at the real peak of our powers as a club. So yeah, we'd beaten Blackburn Rovers to win the title 6-1 at Newcastle Road. So high-scoring games are nothing out of the ordinary for us. We celebrated winning the title with a hectic week where we played 3 friendlies. We beat Sunderland Albion 6-1, so another high-scoring game. One newspaper described it is the two clubs having recently buried the hatchet. Sunderland had made friends with what they were referring to as the Hendonites, having not played against them in over 2 years due to unpleasantness and ill feeling. We then beat the Casuals 4-0, and we played Middlesbrough Ironopolis, I think I've pronounced that right, in a benefit game for a lad that had appeared for Middlesbrough and for Sunderland on a handful of occasions, called George Miller. So to win the title, play 3 non-league games, 2 friendlies in the benefit match, and then turn up back on league duty and win 7-1. Sunderland certainly weren't at the beach. That underlines just how we were, how good we were, but unfortunately on that occasion it was Darwen that paid the price, because we took them apart.
Brilliant. And yeah, huge aggregate scoreline over a couple of games, isn't it? And Darwen kind of came back and played a part in our more recent history, didn't it? Because they were the team who, if we hadn't beaten Preston under Mick McCarthy, we would have equalled their record for the consecutive league defeats. I think so. It could have come back round again, couldn't it?
It could have done. I think as well, Darwen were actually quite pleased when we didn't lose, because it meant they
claim to fame, isn't it?
Exactly. So I've got this idea of, if you go to the Darwen Museum, their displays are of look at all these games we lost, and look at the season where Sunderland put 14 past us.
No, it certainly would have been a good time to be watching Sunderland back then, wouldn't it?
Aye.
Well, we're gonna...
Andrew, I've always loved that expression, bury the hatchet. I used to have a mate who used to use it, and quite often follow it up with, in your heed or in your back.
Well, against Sunderland Albion, there possibly was a touch of that. By this point, Sunderland could afford to be a bit more magnanimous, seeing as we'd just won the title. But the years prior to that, it had been an unpleasant little relationship between the two clubs.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how that would have played out if Sunderland Albion had stuck around. It would have been so different, wouldn't it? Everything about Sunderland Association Football Club would have been so different. The fans would have been split. The rivalries would have been different. Who knows what happens?
I think as well, because they were both formed by the same person, there would have always been that. And the fact that Sunderland eventually settled on the north side and Albion were based around Hendon throughout their history, there could very well have been a north-south divide in the town. And people who, like my best mate grew up in Harrington, and one of the reasons we became so close was because we went to the matches together. Had it been different, I might have seen him at college, looked at him, and thought, Albion scum. I'm not going to become friends with that. He, actually, having said that, he might have wished Albion did continue for that very reason. He wouldn't have to put up with my awful patter. But yeah, it could have been very, very different town.
Imagine the fun with the visitors we would have missed, though, if we'd been a two-club city.
Well, it would have been completely irrelevant, actually, if it might not exist anymore.
Maybe that would have been the only thing that would have united Sunderland fans and Sunderland Albion fans. Everybody's sick of that lot.
2 County Durham teams. I'll put the Durham Mags in the place, wouldn't it? April the 22nd, 1899, we beat the visitors or the hosts 1-0. It was the first ever trip to St James's Park. Colin McClatchy got the goal on 74 minutes. And 6 years later, in 1905, we beat them again, 3-1. George Holly got 2 and Harold Buckle got the other. Now, 1939, Roker Park hosted the FA Amateur Cup final. Bishop Auckland beat Willington 3-0. Bob Paisley was in the Bishop Auckland team that day before his move to Liverpool, as was my granddad. So there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And he was always very disappointed because it was against Willington. They didn't get to go to Wembley. They played in the North East. So they played at Roker Park. But that was 1939. And on the same day, Sunderland were away at Liverpool and drew 1-1 with Rachel Carter scoring the goal on that occasion. 1978, Sunderland beat Spurs away 3-2. Gary Rowell got 1 of the goals and Bob Lee got 2. And in 1989, Sunderland beat Shrewsbury Town at Roker Park. I think it was a crowd of 9,000 and something there. Thomas Hauser got 1 of the goals and Gordon Armstrong got the other. Here's a question for you. Who was the centre-half for Shrewsbury that Thomas Hauser rampaged against and scored goals against that day?
Has he been mentioned already today?
He might have been mentioned already.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That
Kelvin
wasn't who I was thinking of. Now.
Kelvin.
I was going to say Ian Atkins.
Oh, okay. Ian Atkins did. Go on. Sorry, Martin.
Sorry, I was going to say it was David Moyes who was centre half for Shrewsbury that day.
Well, hey, yeah.
There you go.
I think Ian Atkins did play against us that season, but yeah,
Birmingham,
he would.
I think.
Yes, he would. He would get a nicer reception if he turned up at the stadium like now than if David Moyes did. I can't imagine him ever being asked to do the halftime draw on a Sunderland match day.
Can't see it. Only if it was preceded by hung and followed by quarters, I think.
Oh, very good.
Other names in that Shrewsbury Town team that day were perennial Dennis Smith target Bernard McNally, who was in midfield, and alongside him in midfield was Mickey Thomas, who played for Manchester United and Leeds and Her Majesty's 11 at some point, and scored that famous goal for Wrexham, didn't he, against Arsenal in the FA Cup, which will get replayed more and more and more as Wrexham head to the playoffs, I suspect.
He was a cracking player on his day, him.
Oh,
Mickey
brilliant.
Thomas. He was a
excellent
good lad there. Yeah.
Excellent player. And if you want to lend a couple of quid off, I think. Year 2000, 2 goals from Kevin Phillips.
He'd have been a good loan player, would he not?
He would have been indeed. Right, we'll get the year 2000, Sunderland plays Sheffield Wednesday down in Hillsborough, and 2 late goals from Kevin Phillips on 86 minutes and 90, which were his 28th and 29th of the season, gave us the 2-0 win. We'll move on to April the 23rd. Now, 1898. James Chalmers scored the final goal at the Newcastle Road Ground. It was a 4-0 win over Nottingham Forest. Chalmers has actually opened the scoring very early on in that game, and John Brown and Jim Leslie got the others for us. 1904, we've talked a few times, haven't we, about Jimmy Miller, or Jamie Miller, as you pointed out last week, just for clarity. 1904, he had his benefit match at Roker Park. That was against the visitors. We won 3-0. Billy Hogg got 2 goals and Arthur Bridget got the other on that occasion. And 1973, this was another game in that run before the FA Cup final. We played Cardiff at Roker Park. Dennis Stewart got a penalty and Billy Hughes got the other in a 2-0 win. Last week, we talked about the Mercantile Credit Festival, and we pondered on the fact that Tim Carter had played his first game for us. Well, he did play at Wembley that week before, but a week later he made his official debut, and this was a 1-0 defeat, rather, over Bristol City at Roker Park. I think Tim Carter signed from Bristol Rovers, so he was playing against a club I think he was from down there as well, wasn't he? But we lost 1-0 on that occasion. I think that was his only appearance that season, because Ian Hesford came back in goal after that game. 1994, Sunderland beat Southend 1-0 at Roots Hall with a 90th minute goal from Martin Smith. And in 1996, there was an England under-21 game against Croatia at Roker Park. Now, this is a tough question. In the England team that played, so including subs who came on, there was a future Sunderland player, and there was also a former Sunderland player. Now, this is an England under-21 game, so former Sunderland player is quite an interesting one. But while you're pondering that, I'll give you some of the other names that were in the side for England that day. Michael Brown, who played for Manchester City at the time, I think he went on to play for Leeds and Sheffield United and people like that. He was in the team. Richard Rufus, who of course haunted us at Wembley a few years later from Charlton. He played Ben Thatcher, who was best friends with Nicky Summerby's Cheek. He was at Millwall at the time. He played in that game. Lee Hendry from Aston Villa came on as a sub. Kevin Gallen, who was at QPR. Ian Moore from Tranmere. I think he was the son of Ronnie Moore, the former Rotherham striker and manager. Bruce Dyer from Crystal Palace played. A lad from Newcastle called, I think it was Matt Holland, I think they signed him from Leyton Orient or somebody like that. He played. But a future Sunderland goalkeeper came on as sub to replace a lad from Tottenham called somebody Day. I'm not too sure who that was. And there was a winger who'd played for Sunderland earlier this season, was in the lineup, the starting lineup. He got subbed after an hour.
The winger. Sorry, Kelvin. Do you want to stab at the winger?
No.
The
no
winger.
Idea.
The winger, I'm assuming, was Terry Cook.
Correct. He was, and he didn't get subbed after an hour. He played the full game for anybody in the 4,000 odd crowd who was there who's going to put me right. Terry Cook played the full game.
I was in the 4,000 crowd, and I will not be putting you right on anything because I have very few memories of that particular game. The goalkeeper one's a great question because that has me stumped. But obviously, an England prospect who later signed for Sunderland. It wasn't Steve Harper.
It wasn't Ben Alec, was it?
No, neither of those. He was at Luton Town at the time.
Was it Chamberlain? No, sorry. Oh, my word. Of course it wasn't Alec Chamberlain. He was playing for the first team.
He didn't have a particularly successful spell at Sunderland.
Kelvin, you must know this name. Kelvin.
All right. Was it Kelvin Davis then?
It was.
Yeah.
Kelvin Davis came on as sub for England that day. Now, this is another random one, and it's to do with our not so good friends up the road. There was a future Newcastle player in the Croatia lineup, and I don't think either of you will or should know who that was. No, it was a lad called Silvio Maric. A very short spell at Newcastle, but he was in the Croatia side that day. That was another name that stood out in the news report when I was looking at that one. 2005, Steve Caldwell got a goal to send us up. We played a game against Leicester City. Ben Allen was making his debut and he conceded really early on, but he ended up having a great game. Funny you just mentioned Ben Allen, Kelvin, and there he was. Marcus Stewart has got an equaliser for us, and then in the second half, Caldwell scored a goal and everything was happy. I was at Mick McCarthy team going up, and Caldwell played a big part last season for us.
He did. He was a handy enough player, him, at that level, I thought. A handy enough player and a boy that put a good shift in every time he played. Memory's funny, isn't it? The things you remember about games. I always remember watching that game, and we brought on. I cracked a joke about bringing the little ones on from the bench that day. And it was Brian Dean and Danny Collins came on from the bench that day. But am I right in thinking, wasn't Dion Dublin in the Leicester team that day? Is that my memory?
Well have been.
Could
well have been.
I didn't look at this. I missed this game, but I always remember it. Joking about the height coming on from the bench.
I've got a feeling he was, but I'm just going to...
I've got this thing about Brian Dean and Dion Dublin both being on the pitch at the same time, and I don't think there was any love lost between them two.
He was playing centre half.
Aye, centre half, yeah. I thought that, yeah. Aye, wow, that was some good game, that one.
Well, now you've got me with the Leicester City lineup up on screen. There was a future Sunderland striker playing for Leicester that day.
It was David Connolly.
He was
playing, wasn't he? Yeah. That's just popped into my head as well.
I always liked David Connolly. I thought he was a really good goal scorer. He's somebody who was signed earlier.
Yeah. He wasn't a left winger though, was he? When we played him out there who was it that did that? It was bonkers. He was always a striker for me. Like,
well, I think Keane his only manager at Sunderland. I think Keane probably sold him as well as bought him.
Yeah.
After last week's episode that was a megathon and ended up being about 15 hours long, I've been trying this week to not jump in with my boring stories and anecdotes, but I'm going to finally bite. This day when we won, was this? Sorry, did you say this was the day promotion was confirmed?
Yeah.
I went to the stadium that night for it was some sort of St. George's Day themed meal. And the players were still, well, some of them were hammered. And they were just wandering in and out of this meal. People were loving it, Earlier on in the day, I had queued up for tickets to the Radio 1 big weekend, the last time it was on in Sunderland. And it was like an overnight queuing job. People were camping out and all of this. And it just struck me that now the Radio 1 big weekend's coming back to Sunderland. It just struck me how easy it was to buy tickets this time. I was whinging to the kids saying, in my day, you had to get up at daft o'clock and you had to queue in the freezing weather. But we then, I think the actual weekend of that event was the same weekend we finished the season and were awarded the trophy. Whereas again, this time in 2026, our final game of the season at home to Chelsea is also the same weekend. So there must be a Sunderland fan at Radio 1 who likes to find an excuse to be in the town at the last game of the season.
Champions League place confirmed against Chelsea. You've heard it here first from Andrew.
Exactly.
Just going to say, do you get a trophy for qualifying for Europe?
It's we get the trophy the following season when we win the Champions League.
Right.
That's how it works.
Go on, lads.
You have to get Radio 1, come back next season.
Yeah.
I think we got promoted on that day, and we win the championship down at West Ham the following Friday night. So I was at Upton Park that night, and what brilliant day and night that was. Absolutely cracking stuff. Got back home at stupid o'clock and in a stupid state, but never mind, that's another story for another day. 2011, Sunderland beat Wigan 4-2 at the stadium. Like, this game was 0-0 at half-time. Asamoah Gyan, Stefan Sessegnon and Jordan Henderson got 2 goals to give us a good win under Steve Bruce. A rare win at that point of the season, I think. 2023, so just 3 years ago, on April 23rd, this was a game at the Hawthorns when Tony Mowbray took us back to West Brom. We were 1-0 down, conceded a penalty, and then Dennis Serkin pulled 2 brilliant goals out in the second half to give us a very good 2-1 win. And it's always, we tend to look back on players who've left the club now, but Dennis Serkin's one who has kind of flown under the radar a bit. Now, I know this is another topic of conversation for another day, but you kind of forget how long he's been at the club. You always focus on Luke O'Nien as being a player who's been at the club a long time, and obviously Serkin hasn't been there as long as he has. But Serkin's been around, hasn't he? He's come all the way up from League One with us, and I desperately hope he signs a new contract in the summer. And I think he could be a Premier League fullback if he keeps his fitness.
I think he could be he needs a run of games, and that I was at that West Brom game, and he scores them goals like a forward.
He's a lovely footballer. He's a lovely footballer.
It's interesting. I was saying, not necessarily for this pod, but I walked down to the ground on Sunday with 2 Spurs fans, and they were talking about Serkin and saying that they really felt like he'd never really had a chance at Spurs, and how was he doing, And I did find myself saying he's got a lot of support in the fan base, Serkin. There's a lot of people really like him, But I did find myself saying he's a great fullback going forward.
Yeah,
but he does get caught out sometimes defensively. But name me a fullback that doesn't.
No, that's right.
I don't think Joe Bolton ever got caught out. Anyway.
And we digress, and we can leave people to ponder on Spurs signing Dennis Serkin back for a promotion push next season while we'll take a short break.
Yay.
And we'll be back after a couple of ads.
I'm your host, Stassi Schroeder. Welcome to Tell Me Lies, the official podcast. What's the most unhinged thing of season 3?
Steven, because he's so evil.
I do think he is misunderstood.
You see everyone face consequences.
It's intoxicating. The writers just know how to trick you.
There's always a twist in this show. It's nothing you would expect.
Tell Me Lies, the official podcast, now streaming, and stream the new season of Tell Me Lies on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Welcome back to Howie, the podcast, and you are joining us in the middle of another episode of On This Week, and we're going to April the 24th now. In 1915, Charlie Buchan scored a goal against Tottenham Hotspur in a 5-0 win. This was the last goal the club scored before the league was halted for World War I. So that was a nice 5-0 win. 1926 beat Notts County 3-1. Billy Death, Bobby Gurney, and Ike Megorian, who's not a name I've come across too often, but an excellent name, got the goals for us on that occasion. 1954, we beat Burnley 2-1 at Roker Park. Jimmy Adamson opened the scoring for Burnley on that occasion. Ken Chisholm got 2 goals to give us the win. And in 1962, we beat Rotherham 3-0 at Millmore. Brian Clough got 2 and Charlie Hurley got the other. 1982, we beat West Brom 3-2. Stan Cummins, Nick Pickering and Gary Rowell with the winner on that occasion. And in 1985, Gordon Armstrong made his debut against West Brom at the Hawthorns. It was his first of more than 400 appearances for us. Now, 2010, we played Hull down at, I guess it was a KC Stadium at that point. We won 1-0. Darren Bent got a goal. Jimmy Bullard missed a penalty, but this was a game that Alan Hutton and Josie Altidore, who was playing for Hull that day, had a bit of a to-do on the touchline just before half-time, and both of them got red cards, and we ended up winning that game and say 1-0 with Darren Bent's goal. Now, April the 24th, 2004, Kelvin,
Yeah.
A very famous international sportsman, I will say, passed away.
Oh, yeah. And what a cracking opportunity to talk about this chap. We're going back to almost a bygone era. You know, get your Victoria sponge out and make yourself a nice cup of tea, lads, because we're going to talk about a gentleman sportsman, a gentleman cricketer and footballer. And the chap in question is Willie Watson. He is one of only 13 people to be capped by England at both football and cricket. What an achievement that is. Willie was born in the Yorkshire cricket heartlands of Bolton-on-Dearne in 1920. And as a child, he grew up in a sports-mad house, and he excelled at both cricket and football. His dad was quite a local celebrity. He'd been the mainstay of Huddersfield Town's treble championship winning side of the 1920s. And he was actually the Huddersfield reserve team coach when Willie signed for Huddersfield in 1937. And he was a left winger when he signed for Huddersfield. His older brother Albert was already an established Huddersfield player, and he went on to captain Oldham after the war. Albert Watson. World War II did interfere with Willie's career. He played 11 games for Huddersfield. It was kind of his breakout season, but the war started, and that was him. For that period of the war with Huddersfield. What he did do, he played quite a lot of games with the army team. He enlisted and played for the army team when he was available. And he played with the likes of Matt Busby, Tommy Lawton, Joe Mercer, Frank Swift, and Tom Finney. So he was just a young lad, but he had a nice grounding. Given that World War II was going on, he had a nice grounding in terms of his football development with that army team. He signed for Sunderland in 1946. Bill Murray bought him and spent $8,000 on him it was at that time it was quite a lot of money for a player that not too many people knew too much about, and he wasn't officially demobbed when he signed. He was still officially in the army when he signed for Sunderland. And Murray, however things pan out for Bill Murray, we're talking about a long-serving player and then a long-serving manager for Sunderland, and things do end badly for Murray, but he could spot a player. And he had a good record of picking up players, but he could see in Watson a player who fitted the profile of the team he was trying to build: adaptable, young, energetic, attacking kind of player. And he did sign him, and Watson played all his time with Sunderland was spent playing in that what became known as the Bank of England team, because whilst Murray was building a team, the directors were buying one, and they went on to try and buy, and did buy, a lot of the very best players that could be bought. Bill Murray and Sunderland bought over that period. He signed Watson initially as an inside left. But the next year he got the opportunity to buy Len Shackleton, Murray. So he moves Watson to left half. So he's gone from left wing, inside left, and then he moves him to left half. Strictly speaking, almost a defensive style player. But Watson is so adaptable that he grows into the role, and very quickly he's recognised as the most attacking left half of that generation, and that was his reputation. The time he was always a great favourite of my dad's. My dad really liked Willie Watson, even though my dad was a Newcastle fan. He would say, when you watch that lad play left half, he said you had to be bloody careful of him. He was a boy that would get forward, spring forward, and if he didn't score, he would create something for other people. And that hinge of on that left-hand side of Watson, Shaq, and Billy Elliott. We're talking about Billy Elliott before. That was a pretty potent left-hand side for Sunderland throughout that period. He played for Sunderland from 1946 to 1954, 223 appearances, 16 goals. He probably would have had a lot more appearances, but we'll come back there. We will talk about why he didn't get them. He appeared for England 6 times as a Sunderland player. It included 2 uncapped, what were called victory games. And all his appearances for England were between 1949 and 1950. He would likely have got more caps if one of England's greatest players and captains, Billy Wright, had not played in the same position. He made his debut for England in 1949 in a game at the Hawthorns against Ireland, and that was when Ayr and Northern Ireland played as one team, and it was a 9-2 victory. And he was described as prompting the England attack very well for the whole of the game. He had quite a good debut. And in 1950, he went as part of the England squad to that first World Cup in Brazil. He didn't play a game. And this is like a theme, if you want, of his international career. He didn't play a game with the selectors preferring a more defensive lineup. As a halfback, he was always looking to get forward. When he was quizzed about this in the press, and typical to his nature, he preferred to marvel at the ball skills of the South Americans rather than any bitterness towards selectors or his colleagues about not getting a game. He was a real. Whenever you start reading around Watson, one of the things that comes up regularly and consistently is what a gentleman he was. He was just a boy that was a real gent. One of Willie's memorable England games was against Wales in 1950. It was played at Roker Park, and 59,000 watched that game. England won 4-2, and we were talking about him, I think, pre-show. We're talking about Trevor Ford, I think. He scored both Wales's goals and had only been a Sunderland player for 13 days prior to that game. In the Welsh squad, Ray Beeb Daniel also played, and he signed in 1953. So him and Watson did play games together, but only for a season. This game as well was Alf Ramsey's first game as captain. The reason why Watson was playing was Billy Wright wasn't available, and it was Alf Ramsey's first game as captain at Roker Park. Making his debut in the Wales game was a guy called Leslie Compton, and he's on record as the oldest debutant for England. Now, Leslie Compton was the brother of Dennis Compton, who had a hand in Willie's most famous moment for England as a cricketer. But Leslie and Dennis, and we are talking about a different era. Now, I love this kind of thing. Leslie and Dennis both played for Middlesex County Cricket Club in the summer and Arsenal during the football season. So an interesting time, and there were a number of players about who played county cricket, a small number of players about who played county cricket, and the Comptons were one of them. All of Willie's England games, as I've said, were as a Sunderland player. Andy's playing in that Bank of England team alongside, and I'm going to use the word, such legends as Johnny Mopson, Shaq, Billy Elliott, George Aitken, Billy Bingham, Ivor Brodus. They were some of the best players of that era that he was playing alongside. And throughout all of that period, he played first-class cricket for Yorkshire County Cricket Club, and he started playing for them in 1939, just after the war had finished. Coming back to his appearance stats, it's remarkable. This I just do find this. You couldn't imagine this happening now, in this day and age. For all of his time as a Sunderland player, between 46 and 1954, he'd missed the start of the season with Sunderland to finish the end of the season with Yorkshire County Cricket. Okay, so, and the Northern Echo, they carried some great. I mean, I almost tripped over this. It wasn't even in the sports section. I just tripped over this report of Yorkshire County Cricket and Sunderland agreeing the arrangement for Willie Watson to, to play. He had it kind of written into his contract. I think the other thing that it says is, at the time, and when we think of what happens coming towards the end of that decade in the 50s, he made more money playing cricket than he did playing football. And that's why the Yorkshire County Cricket kind of held sway a little bit. But they did facilitate him. And I think that said something about, the caliber of the man as a player. He obviously, we know, because we've spoken about them in the Sport Lads, footballers, Sunderland footballers that were canny cricketers as well and had a good reputation. Rich Carter played for Derbyshire County Cricket. We know that Shaq played quite a high standard of club cricket, as did Brian Clough. He liked his cricket. Ralphie Goodchild was a good club cricketer, and moving into more recent times, Dickie Ode was a really good club cricketer as well. So it's not a new phenomenon for Sunderland players to enjoy the game of cricket in the summer, but of all of these, Willie Watson was obviously the most successful Sunderland footballer, cricketer that we've had. He played his last game for the England football team against Yugoslavia in 1950, and he was dropped. And he was told this, he was dropped for being too much of an attacker in his position. That's why he got dropped. But he appears to have responded to this by gaining his England cricket debut in 1951 against a strong South African side at Trent Bridge, where he went on to score 79. He played for the England team from 1951. He played for England cricket in two spells. He played for them between 1951 and 1954. And he lost his place in Len Hutton's team that retained the Ashes. But after he moved from Yorkshire to Leicestershire in 1958, where he became assistant secretary and captain at Leicestershire County Cricket, and he received a return call-up in the autumn of his career and toured New Zealand with England in 1959. His final Test appearance was there against New Zealand in March 1959. for the people the statisticians that like a stat or two, his cricketing stats. He played 23 England caps spread over 8 years between 51 and 59. He scored 879 runs at just below 26 runs per innings average. He played 468 first class appearances he made between 1939 and 64, and he scored 25,670 runs at just under 40 runs per innings average. His footballing stats, 1938 to 1956, he played 11 games for Huddersfield prior to the Second World War, and then between 1946 and 54, as I've said, he played 211 games and scored 16 goals over 7 seasons with Sunderland. He did go on and play at Halifax between 1954 and 56 when he left Sunderland. He was actually player manager there. And he also managed Halifax in 1964-66, and then he managed Bradford from 1966 to 1968. So he did dip his toe into the managerial water in terms of football. He wrote his memoirs, Double Internationalist, in 1956, and he actually opened a sports shop in Sunderland with his brother Albert in the 60s. They had a sports shop. I can see Andrew's eyebrows pricking up there. You probably got them plastic mouldies that you played on the plastic pitch from the. In 1968, though, he received an offer to go and coach the world famous Wanderers Club in Johannesburg, and him and his family emigrated out there. They did eventually settle there, and he became he was a very well respected coach and administrator out there in Johannesburg. But we must come back. A couple of funny stories here. We must come back to his finest hour as an England cricketer. He was a left-hand middle-order batsman with a reputation for being able to carry his bat for long periods. And I first became aware of him during a friendly debate with me dad. I'd been bigging up Ian Botham and Viv Richards as football and cricketers. I don't know if you know Richards. He played football for Antigua and Barbados in the 1974 World Cup qualifiers. And obviously we know that apart from training with Sunderland for a short while, Botham played for Scunthorpe, I think it was, primarily the reserves, yeah. So I'm bigging these two lads up. My father sitting there in the way that he did, with his head cocked, looking at us, and I finishes my, these lads, great sportsmen, love a bit of that. And he just says to us, he just hit me with Willie Watson. And just in that way that he used to have, he says, tells us about Willie Watson. He says, "You'll not beat that." It's bloody right. Well, I couldn't beat that. So his finest hour as an England cricketer, it came in 1953. The Aussies had brought a strong team over to retain the Ashes. And the tested Lords had had a disastrous start for England, who were 12 for 3 wickets when Willie came into bat. I guess you could say that he came out on a very sticky wicket at that point. And he must have had a degree of trepidation when he came out, because apart from a fired-up Aussie attack, Dennis Compton was the other England player. Now, that's the brother of Leslie Compton who I was talking about before. Dennis Compton's in the opposite crease. And Trevor Bailey, the famous commentator and cricketer, he once said of Compton, one has to regard Dennis calling for a run as the start of negotiations if you want to survive at the crease with him. So it was it was kind of the last thing he needed, you know. As it was Compton that was run out for 33, and England were 116 for 4 at lunch. Trevor Bailey himself then came out. Now, the beauty of this is you've got two cricketers at the crease who were of similar ilk that could both carry that bat. And Trevor Bailey, if ever you listen to the cricket and the commentary, you'll sometimes hear the Aussie commentators of Trevor Bailey's generation. They would call him Barnacle Bill, because he was like a barnacle. He would just go in and play them with a very straight bat. So you had two players out there, and they contrived to save the game. And ultimately, the Ashes, England did win the Ashes. They batted for over 4 hours. Watson got his 100 after 315 minutes and was caught at slip on 109. And he had lifelong memories of the applause at Lord's when he left the pitch. He always referred to that as probably his greatest memory was the applause that he had for doing that. And England did end up winning the Ashes, and it was the first time they'd done so since the Bodyline series in 1933. Now, of the 13 people who played international cricket and football for England and were capped in both, only Claire Taylor's come along since to manage that feat of being a double internationalist. I don't think that's something that'll ever happen again. I think it'd be really difficult to do that. And it says something about the generation, the kind of athlete that he was. He did play international cricket and football in a golden era for talent, both international football and cricket. There was some smashing players about. His record-breaking stand in 1953. I mean, my dad just said he'd never forgotten it. You know, it was just a fantastic thing. And the legendary umpire Dickie Bird, some people might remember this lad. He was a colleague at Yorkshire and Leicestershire, and he rated Watson as a cricketer only behind Willie Hammond and Len Hutton. He was the last of his kind. He was an adventurous left-footed halfback who loved to attack at football, as well as an accomplished middle-order left-hand bat, a superb athlete. And I think he does deserve his place, not only in the annals of Sunderland Football Club, but English football and cricket too. He did pass away in 1984, you're right. 2004. He was 84. And there was a lovely obituary, I thought, in The Guardian for him. I've always liked this, from a guy called Derek Hodgson. He said, always courteous. His manner suggested a shyness that might be the key to his extraordinary career. A man who enjoyed accomplishment and applause, but who disliked the spotlight intensely. He's probably the greatest international footballer to play cricket for England, and I think he was.
Very nice. Very good stuff, Kelvin. It's remarkable how some people are so bloody talented, isn't it? It's so frustrating.
Absolutely. And yeah, as somebody who, how can I compare my own meagre efforts to Willie Watson? But, trying to play both, as an amateur player, trying to play both cricket and football was really difficult to do that if you were good enough to do both as an amateur, never mind as a professional. I just a chap from a bygone era, and what I really liked about it, and my dad used to say that about him whenever he got the chance. He was a right gentleman as well. And when he used to speak, when he was interviewed, he would shy away from interviews and stuff like that. But he always came across as a right gentleman. A real character, I think. Real character.
Beautiful as always, Kelvin. I remember that record stand that you talked about in the Ashes. I remember listening to Test Match Special when that record was broken.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, you know, Willie Watson was the previous holder of the record." I've just looked it up there. That was in 2018. So prior to that, since 1953, that stand of 160 odd for a fifth wicket had stood for generations. That's how big an achievement that particular thing was. And you mentioned the shops there, Kelvin. I was looking forward to you talking about Willie Watson because you'd said before you were going to talk about him. I had a little look about these shops that he had because I've heard of countless people who remember the thrill of getting their first pair of football boots or their first cricket bat and being served by an England. I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, it's not like going to a retail park and picking up your shoes now yourself and taking them to the till. You were being served by an England international. The original shop he had was on Ash Place in Newcastle Road. So relatively close to Roker Park, that relatively close to where Sunderland's previous ground had been. He then moved into the town and had a shop in the new arcade, which became Palmer's Arcade. Now, I'm more than happy to be corrected on this. I might be wrong. I think that arcade is behind what was Jopling's, and then later became the BT Exchange building that still stands there. That was built in 1972, when the arcade came down. And Watson's shop moved round to High Street West. So Martin's saying it's annoying when there's a fella who's got all these multi-talents. Not only is he a football international, he's a cricket international. He's also clearly a pretty astute businessman who's managed to keep a retail shop going for years and years as well. So some boy, Willie Watson, and You've summed up some of his achievements brilliantly there, Kelvin.
Definitely a multitasker. Yes. You know, he was doing all sorts, wasn't he? I tell you, if I'd known that, I'd have made me father bring us across from Morpeth to buy my boots because I was always intrigued by him and Dad's story about him. Always intrigued. Good stuff. God, haven't we got some interesting people in our history?
I think, to be fair, if your dad had known he had a shop in town, he might have insisted on dragging you along because it sounds like your dad was quite enamoured by him as well.
He was.
Behave, Kelvin. Be quiet. I'm busy talking to the man in the shop now. You just push up there.
Sit there for 3 hours, son.
Yeah.
Mustn't have advertised in the Morpeth Gazette or wherever you go up there.
Aye. Well, we had our own legend in Morpeth, Jimmy. Some of you might be able to remember Jimmy Older used to have a sports shop in Morpeth. He was often called the Marathon Man. He won the Commonwealth Gold at and I'm sure he won a bronze medal at the Olympics. He was a fine ambassador for Morpeth, was Jimmy.
How do you compete as a sports retailer in those days if you've not like represented your country on the international stage? Some poor fellas flipping athletes at one end and international cricketers, and there's me just trying to run a sports shop.
Yeah. You'd have to lower your prices, I think, Andrew.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? It certainly beats scanning things yourself these days, doesn't it? Getting served by top-class sportsmen back in the day.
Martin, I'll very quickly just throw in then, seeing as we're on that theme, Billy Hardy used to work in the town, the boxer, and bless him, he was forever having to sign autographs, and he must have been thinking, look, just buy a pair of trainers off us or something, will you? You're in every week wanting an autograph off us.
Well, see, in concert, we had the boxer Glenn McCrory, and he owned a pub called McCrory's.
Okay.
Right.
You get served is all I'm saying. Back in the day. Right, we will take another short break and back soon.
The right window treatments change everything. Your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 50% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Welcome back to How Are You, the podcast, and you are joining us for another episode of On This Week, and we're going to go back to 1903 here, April the 25th. Now, imagine this scenario happening today. Sunderland are going for the league title. Somehow, over the last few weeks, we've kind of stuffed it up. We've lost the game at Bolton, and Bolton are going down. You know, it's a game that we shouldn't have lost. We've dropped another couple of points here and there. Final game of the season is away at Newcastle. If we win, we'll win the league title. Now, the Football League send observers up to the game to make sure that Newcastle don't ease off to give us the title. Now, I'm not sure what relationships between the two clubs were like back in 1903, but it certainly wouldn't happen today, would it? You wouldn't have any danger on that score. Unfortunately, we did get beat. Newcastle must have been wanting to put on a show for the observers. They beat us. We lost 1-0, and Sheffield Wednesday took the championship by a point. So we missed out on the league title, but it tickled me the fact that the Football League thought they needed to send observers all the way up from London, because maybe they were still in Blackpool. They were in Blackpool at that point, but send observers from somewhere to make sure Newcastle didn't ease off.
Was that not just an all expenses paid jolly up? They've gone, aye, we'll better go to this game on the company dollar.
Somebody's fell for it somewhere anyway.
I'm trying to think though. Would we not have what was the year again, Martin? 1903.
1903, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Was John Old playing for Newcastle by then? Or I'm just wondering whether it was something. Maybe that spotted that there were a couple of. Was he playing by then? I can't.
Maybe
I've lost the dates.
I'll have a very, very quick look. I did have a look. The only former William Agnew was future Sunderland player. He hadn't signed for us. He played 28 games in between 1908 and 1910. So no, there wasn't any.
Okay, there wasn't anything like that going on. Yeah. Well, it's so odd, isn't it?
No, it really is. It's quite amusing, but unfortunately.
It's possible, though, that by that point, Old had retired and he joined the board, didn't he? It's not out.
Yeah.
It's not out of the question. To be fair.
Yeah.
So calling John Old's character into question, are we? Is this what we're doing, Andrew?
Yeah.
Is that why he wasn't picked for that Legends War?
Yeah.
Everybody knew the full story.
Well,
if John Old had finagled it so that we won the title whilst he was at Newcastle, then he would have definitely got a stone.
Definitely would be the legend. I think if we'd done the Willie Watson bit that Kelvin's just done a few weeks ago, Willie Watson might have got one. Never mind Bob Murray or somebody like that. Bob Murray likes cricket, though. I think, doesn't he? Bob Murray's a famous cricket fan. So
he is.
Another one there. Let's have a look to see where we are. 1931, Sunderland beat West Ham 3-0 at Upton Park. Joe Devine, Walter Keaton and Bobby Gurney got the goals. The chap called Bert Johnson made his debut for us. Now, 1957, we have traced the Mr. Smith saga throughout the course of this year. I think it was first made the headlines in the January of 1957, didn't it, Andrew? And we've traced it, Lucy. We are going to do a bit of a deep dive during the summer. I think we're going to really get stuck into the archives and find out everything that kind of happened and subsequently happened. But on this day, April 25th in 1957, there was another hearing at the Football League, and a few players were punished rather heavily.
Aye, that commission got through plenty of work, didn't they? Because it was a couple of weeks prior that club staff and the hierarchy were punished. And then now it was the players' turns in the dock. And yeah, there was there was fines handed out, there was bans handed out. I think I may have read that some players lost benefit entitlements. I believe that was not benefits as we know them now, but that must have presumably been, I don't know, like
pensions and stuff.
Pension type things. So it was wide ranging. There was lots of people dragged in. There was some big names in Sunderland's history embroiled in all of this, and I can't wait for us to get really stuck into that. We keep leading forward, don't we, to this massive investigation we're going to do. Just such a pivotal moment in Sunderland history, and you could argue that the writer of the anonymous letter that chopped the club in the first place, we believe it was due to a business dispute or a politics behind the scenes on the board. I don't think they ever envisaged it would have such a long-standing impact. I suspect they thought it was just going to be a slap on the wrist for one or two directors, and then it's just blown up and players are getting banned, and some players had moved on by that point anyway, but it impacted people's careers massively.
It didn't. It's. I think you're right in the observation that whoever started the ball rolling didn't really think the consequences would be so harsh and so hard and so wide ranging. But yeah, you had these players who, reputationally, never mind anything else, the reputation's been completely smashed as a professional.
Well, Bill Murray, the Sunderland manager, who'd been a distinguished player for us and had been manager for the dates escape me now, but possibly decades, he fell on his sword for this, even though it was accepted that he was acting under orders. He resigned, and it was only after he died that he was exonerated. It really hurt him, and like you say, his reputation was in tatters. He took it to his grave, and it was his wife, after his death, his widow, that got a formal apology because the investigation was perhaps not carried out correctly. So yeah, it was massive. And going back to this point about, did the original provocateur of all of this, I don't think they suspected it was going to be this hard-hitting, because the commission that was set up wasn't actually given any powers. So it handed out a lot of fines and a lot of bans and a lot of punishments when it had it actually had no mechanism or no framework to do so. I think they did their investigations and thought, oh, I'm enjoying this. I think I'll start throwing my weight around. And it exploded very quickly. It escalated, and we paid the price.
And then the daft thing about it all is within, 2 years, we see the minimum wage or the maximum wage abolished. And, So the need for it, I guess there was, there was an issue, it wasn't there, in what footballers were being played, these massive gates, massive crowds coming through the door, and that money wasn't necessarily being reflected in the salaries in the pay packet for footballers. But anyway, I'm sure we'll get into it in the summer. I'm sure.
Looking forward to delving into that one a little bit more and see if we can trace a little bit who benefited from the whole thing, because not many people did, but one or two people might have. So we will delve into that when the time is right. 1959, Sunderland played a game against Brighton Hove Albion. Don Kitchenbrand got a hat-trick and Ralphie Goodchild got another goal. 1987, we beat Shrewsbury. This was Bob Stokoe's first win back in charge at Sunderland. We beat Shrewsbury 1-0 away from home. Gary Bennett got the goal on that occasion. 1992, this is our sort of fixture backlog as we approach the FA Cup final. We played the game down in the Goldstone ground against Brighton Hove Albion, drew 2-2. Don Goodman and Anton Rogan got a rare goal. I reckon that might be Anton Rogan's only goal for Sunderland off the top of my head, but somebody will put me right otherwise. And in 1998, Sunderland beat Stoke City 3-0 at the Stadium of Light. Darren Williams got 1 goal, Kevin Phillips got 2, and Alan Durbin was in charge of Stoke City that day. Now, 1979, Kelvin, on April the 25th, we played Sheffield United at Roker Park, and this was a goal fest.
Oh, man, what a game this was. What a game. Indelibly imprinted on my memory, this game. Just one of those games, lads. I'm sure, under the floodlights. Brilliant game. 6-2. We had a Wolf Rostron hat-trick. We had probably the best goals I've ever seen scored by an opposition player in this game. Alex Sabella scored a goal, and I swear to God, Bob Lee scored on 55 minutes, right? Sheffield United kicked off, and the ball was passed to Sabella. And am I embellishing it to say that he beat all our team twice and put the ball in the back of the net? It was just a fantastic goal that he scored. And if you were at that game, go on, tell me I'm wrong. The whole of the crowd applauded it. It was just a fantastic goal. We almost bought him as well. I'm pretty sure he and his wife were at the ground being shown round, and I'm sure his wife had a hand in helping him decide not to come to Sunderland. But he would have been a fantastic buy for us. Sheffield United actually they took the lead early doors in this game, and then we had Rostron's Hattie. He scored on. God, I cannot remember. It was. I think he got 1 in the first half, and then 2 late on. One of them was a pen late on. I'm pretty sure. Barry Siddle actually saved a penalty on just towards it. It was a bonkers game. I think we had goals in the 87th and 88th minute from Rostron, and then Barry Siddle saved a penalty on 90 minutes, and Bob Lee scores on I'm going to say to you 55 minutes, and Sabella scores right after him. It was an absolutely bonkers game. Brilliant fun, just one of those games. Tim Gilbert scored one of his 3 goals in that game. He was playing. I always really liked Tim Gilbert. He was a tad unfortunate that Joe Bolton was standing right in his road, and Joe Bolton was so consistent and hard to move. And but Tim Gilbert was he was a nice attacking fullback. He had some good football in him, and played well the games. I never thought he played a bad game whenever he came in, but he belonged to the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, permed crew. You know, I think we had about 3 or 4 at the time. He was a kind of a good-looking lad, Gilbert. And as I say, a little bit unfortunate, but a fantastic game. I've never forgotten it. One of them bonkers games where you think this is actually why I keep coming, because every once in a while we'll get one of these bonkers games, and it actually took it to the top of the First Division. We were top at the end of this game. There's only 2 games left. You're walking out of the ground thinking, wow, this is us, we're going up. We didn't. We were 4th. We lost at Wrexham. I went all the way back. It wasn't the first time I'd been to Wrexham. I trekked all the way down there and we got beat 2-1. And even though we won our last game, we still finished 4th. So it was a horrible sort of way to end the season. But I've never forgotten that game.
Kelvin, just to avoid you getting pulled in the sauna or grief on the bus, I think we beat Wrexham 2-1. Was it not the other game we got robbed?
Yeah, after the Sheffield United game, we got beat 2-1 at home by Cardiff.
I think Cardiff were poor as well.
Yeah.
And then we beat Wrexham 2-1 away from home.
2-1.
On the last game of the season.
Sorry, I've confused my seasons there. I do beg your pardon. Thanks for that, Andrew. Yeah,
I'm not trying to.
I was at that Wrexham game. Yeah,
I'm not trying to be a smart ass, Kelvin. Sorry, I'll just.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Kelvin might have wanted to get pulled in the sauna. Who knows?
Oh, sorry, Kelvin. Was it deliberate? Was it a tactic to get people to approach you? Man, sorry.
Oh, dear. What a suspicious bloody crew you two are. Jesus Christ.
Right, we will move on to April the 26th, so the last little bit of this episode. And you might recall last week we talked about the test match series that we had in 1897 to stay in the First Division. We had a game against Notts County, and then we went on to play Newton Heath, so we'd had to play the 2 teams who were top of the Second Division. And this game we beat Newton Heath 2-0. James Gillespie got 2 goals, and that preserved our top flight status. 1913, we won the league for the 5th time. A 3-1 win against Bolton Wanderers. Jackie Mordew got a penalty, and Jimmy Richardson got the other 2 goals in that game at Burnden Park. 1980, we beat Graham Taylor's Watford 5-0. Sean Elliott got 2, Pop Robertson got 2, and Mick Buckley got the other one. And in 2008, this was a great game at Stadium of Light. Sunderland beat Middlesbrough 3-2. We came from behind. Darryl Murphy scored an injury time winner against Middlesbrough. And that pretty much guaranteed our Premier League safety for that season, I think, didn't it? Michael Chopra and Danny Higginbottom got the other goals for us. In the Borough starting 11 that day were Lee Catmull, Julio Arca and Stuart Downing. So 3 players with Sunderland connections there in the Borough team. And that does us for today. Hey, look at that. We've come in under 2 hours. We can record next week's episode now, couldn't we?
Oh,
all the time we've got 3 morning now.
Tell you what, Martin, you can now go back to some of those other dates where I was going to chip in with my boring additions.
Listen, I'll lock the builders out. I'm getting some work done on the house. I'll lock them out. Whilst we're recording this one, I'd better go and let them in.
Can't hold the builders up, Kelvin. They'll be charging you double time.
No. Aye.
Excellent. So, Andrew, do you have a question to leave people pondering over ahead of next week's episode?
Yeah, we're getting to that time of the season when it's things are being concluded. 1st of May 1920 was the final league match of that season. We were at home to Liverpool. We've mentioned this a couple of times this week, actually. It was declared a benefit game to which Sunderland figure. I think back in the day, rather than getting a testimonial, a standard game was declared your benefit. I think one of the ones you mentioned, Martin, was against Newcastle United, which I bet they were over the moon about. You want your benefit game to be against somebody who's going to attract a big crowd. But yeah, 1st of May, 1920, we played Liverpool, and that was dedicated or designated even to which Sunderland figure?
Very good. We will leave you all pondering on that one for the next few days, and we'll park it there. So thank you very much, Kelvin. Always a pleasure, and brilliant deep dive on Willie Watson there.
Just nice. Thanks for the platform for that. I love talking about gentleman Willie Watson. I'm going to go and have a slice of Victoria sponge and a cup of tea.
Don't let the builders have a cup of tea and cake, and they'll not get started at all today.
You never get rid of them.
Relax, lads, relax. Be nice, Come on.
And thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you. You were both on top form as always, so I enjoyed that one. Cheers, gents.
And when I was going through that last little bit there, one of those names stuck out to me. I didn't know why. It was the 1931 game, April 25th, at West Ham. I mentioned Walter Keaton was among the goal scorers for Sunderland. He, of course, another player. We talked about him a little bit a few episodes ago. He also played cricket for England whilst representing Sunderland. So, if we'd scripted that better, we could have done a seamless, beautiful link. Right. But we've missed the chance. So we'll have to save that one for next year, maybe. There you go.
How's brother Buster? His brother Buster did all right as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he was decent.
Yeah, but Walter, I can't remember which episode. It was a few episodes ago now, but we talked about Walter Keaton. He holds some good records at county cricket level. He played a couple of games for England, but another very good cricketer. And that sort of time, that era where you could play both sports and be relatively successful at both, and very successful, in fact. But there you go. So thank you to everybody for listening. We will be back next week with another episode of On This Week. And, of course, we'll be back tomorrow on How We Are the Podcast, probably with a Q&A episode tomorrow, but we'll see what we come up with. So until then, it's bye for now.